My mother slid a living donor packet across the conference table and tapped the signature line. My name was already typed at the top. My brother's chair was empty. My father stared at his hands while the transplant coordinator looked from the packet to me. "Kelly only needs to sign," my mother said. "We have already handled the rest." I was 39 years old and I managed a medical testing lab. I knew what informed consent looked like. It did not look like my mother's handwriting filling in my pregnancies, my old surgery, my medications, and the date she wanted one of my kidneys removed. The coordinator pulled the packet away. "Mrs. Turner, no one can volunteer another person." My mother did not even blink. She pointed at me. "She is his daughter. She is healthy. Her employer gives medical leave. Her brother cannot step away from his business." That was how I learned my parents had made two decisions without me. They had chosen me as my father's donor. They had also promised my brother he would never need to be tested. What my mother did not know was that the folder in front of her was no longer the only record in the room. I had her messages to my brother. I had the call log from the donor office. Most of all, I had finally decided that I would not hide behind a medical excuse to protect her feelings. Before I tell you how that meeting ended, take a moment to subscribe. And tell me in the comments whether your family has ever confused being dependable with giving consent. My name is Kelly Turner, and I live outside Columbus, Ohio. My husband Daniel teaches middle school science. We have 2 children. Lucy is 12 and Noah is 9. Our house is noisy, ordinary, and usually full of shoes that belong in a closet. I work as an operations manager for a regional medical laboratory. I do not diagnose patients. I make sure samples go where they should, results are reviewed, and nobody skips a safety step because they are in a hurry. My job taught me that a signed form matters, and a clear answer matters more. In my family, I was the clear answer to almost every problem. My father, Robert, used to call me his steady girl. It sounded affectionate when I was young. Later, I understood the assignment inside it. Steady girls remembered birthdays. They drove people to appointments. They fixed insurance mistakes and brought extra folding chairs. My younger brother, Evan, was the one with plans, and he opened a heating and air business in his late 20s. Our parents talked about it as if he had built a national company. In truth, he had 3 employees, 2 vans, and a talent for calling Dad whenever payroll got tight. I loved Evan. That was part of the problem. He was funny and generous when generosity cost him nothing. He could make my children laugh in less than a minute. He could also leave a room the moment responsibility entered it. Evan was potential. Dad was authority. Mom was sacrifice. I was capacity. The first sign of Dad's kidney trouble appeared years before anyone said the word transplant. He had diabetes and high blood pressure, and he disliked doctors and loved salted peanuts. Mom treated both habits as personality traits nobody could challenge. I tried anyway. "Dad, your numbers are getting worse," I told him after one appointment. He waved the lab sheet at me. "You work around blood all day. Everything looks dramatic to you." Mom laughed. "Let him have one pleasure." It was never one pleasure. It was a pattern. He skipped follow-up visits. He took his pills when he remembered. Mom covered for him, then called me when the consequences became hard to organize. I found a new primary care doctor, and I arranged a nutrition visit. I explained the pharmacy app. Dad attended enough appointments to make everyone stop worrying, then went back to his habits. The call that changed everything came on a Tuesday before sunrise. Mom said Dad could not catch his breath, and I told her to call 911, then drove to the hospital while Daniel got the children ready for school. Dad was in a hospital bed when I arrived. His face looked gray. His ankles were swollen above his socks. A kidney specialist explained that his kidneys were barely doing their job. Medication might stabilize him for a while, but dialysis was close. Mom gripped my wrist. "Tell him there has to be something else." The doctor looked at her, not me. "We will discuss every option. Right now, he needs treatment. Evan arrived nearly 3 hours later. He brought coffee for everyone and a phone charger for Dad, and Mom hugged him as if he had crossed a desert. "Your brother has a business to run," she told me when I asked why he had not answered my calls. Daniel took the children that night. I stayed with Dad. I listened while a nurse explained fluid limits and medication changes. Mom cried into a tissue. Evan went home before dinner because one of his vans had broken down. Dad started dialysis 6 weeks later. The clinic was 20 minutes from my parents' house. His appointments were early. Mom hated driving before daylight, so I took him twice a week. Evan promised to cover Fridays, and he made it to the first one and missed the next 3. "Kelly will handle it." Dialysis changed Dad. He came home exhausted. Food tasted wrong. His skin itched. He lost weight in his face, and his old work shirts hung from his shoulders. I watched his pride shrink with his body. I wanted him well. That matters. It is easy to tell this story as if I never considered donating. I did. The thought scared me, but it also appeared every time I watched him sleep through the drive home. He was my father. Love and anger can occupy the same car. A transplant specialist met with us after Dad had been on dialysis for several months. She explained the waiting list and the possibility of a living donor. She also explained that evaluation was voluntary and private. Mom heard only the phrase living donor. On the way to the parking garage, she said, "Kelly has Dad's blood type." The specialist had not asked about my blood type. Mom supplied it anyway. I stopped beside the elevator. Knowing my blood type is not the same as volunteering me. "Of course not," she said quickly. "We are only talking." Evan pressed the elevator button. "I do not even know mine." Mom turned toward him. "You do not need to worry about it." The doors opened. People moved around us. That small sentence disappeared into the noise, but I heard it. I asked what she meant. "His business depends on him," Mom said. "You have benefits." I stared at her. "I have children." "And Daniel is wonderful with them," she replied. That was the first time my mother balanced my body against my brother's business and decided his risk mattered more. She said it with the calm voice she used when comparing grocery prices. Dad stepped into the elevator. He did not correct her. At home, Daniel listened without interrupting, and he was washing pasta sauce from a pan. When I finished, he set the pan down. "Do you want to be tested?" he asked. "I want Dad to have a chance." That is not the same answer. I knew that. I just did not have the other answer yet. The next evening, Mom emailed me a link about living donation. The subject line said, "Our best path." A second email arrived 10 minutes later. It listed my paid leave, Daniel's summer schedule, and the distance from our house to the transplant center. She had built a recovery plan before I had agreed to an information call. I replied with one sentence, "I have not volunteered." She wrote back, "I know, honey. We are only gathering facts." 3 days later, the living donor office called my cell phone. A woman named Mara introduced herself as a donor coordinator. She said she was following up on my interest in donating to Robert Turner. I stood in the supply room at work with a box of gloves in my hands. "I did not contact your office," I said. There was a pause. "Your contact information was submitted with a request that we call you." "By whom?" "I cannot verify who completed the online request. I can tell you that no evaluation begins without your direct consent." I thanked her and ended the call. Then I checked my email. The donor office had sent a welcome message to an address I rarely used, the one Mom still had from an old family account. The form listed her home as my mailing address. I called Mom. "You said you were gathering facts," I told her. "I was helping you get the facts. You gave them my information. They needed a way to reach you. I have a way to reach them." "It is called making my own phone call," she sighed. "Kelly, every day matters to your father." That sentence worked because it was true, and every day did matter. It did not make what she had done acceptable, but it made my anger feel selfish. Mom knew how to place guilt inside a fact. I called Mara back the next morning. I told her I wanted education only, no testing, no assumption. She repeated that I could stop at any time and that my decision would remain private. I agreed to receive a packet at my own address, and the packet never arrived. A week later, Mom appeared at my kitchen door holding a dark green folder. The donor center logo was printed on the front. My name was written on a white label. "It came to our house," she said. "You gave them your address." I thought it would be easier. I filled in the basic parts. She opened the folder before I could take it. Several pages were covered in her neat blue handwriting, and she had listed my height, my old appendix surgery, both pregnancies, and the medication I took for seasonal migraines. My throat tightened. "Where did you get this? I am your mother. Where did you get my medical information?" She looked offended. "You told me these things." I had told her some of them years ago. Other details came from an emergency binder I had left at her house when Lucy was a baby. I had forgotten it existed. Mom had not. She tapped an unfinished question. "You only need to add the dates." I closed the folder. "You do not fill out a donor history for another person." "I saved you time." "No, you spent consent I had not given." Her face changed. The softness disappeared. "Your father is attached to a machine 3 mornings a week," she said. "Forgive me for using a pen." Lucy was standing in the hallway behind her. I saw my daughter's eyes move from the folder to my stomach, as if she could already see the missing organ. I lowered my voice. "We are done talking about this today." Mom left the folder on my counter. "Read it before you decide to be angry." After she drove away, Lucy asked whether Grandpa needed part of my body. I said the doctors were looking at many choices. "Would you die?" she asked. The honest answer was that major surgery always carried risk. The useful answer was that living donors are carefully evaluated. The answer my child needed was simpler. "No one is taking anything from me unless I choose it," I said. Lucy nodded, but she did not look convinced. Neither was I. I locked the green folder in my desk drawer that night, and I did not throw it away. Part of me wanted proof that Mom had crossed a line. Another part still believed I might complete those pages in my own handwriting someday. On Sunday morning, my phone started buzzing during breakfast. An aunt in Cincinnati wrote that she was praying for my surgery. A cousin asked whether we needed meals during recovery, and someone I barely knew sent a heart and called me a hero. I opened Mom's social media page. She had posted a photograph of Dad in his dialysis chair. Her caption said our family had received wonderful hope because his daughter was beginning the living donor process. She wrote that God had placed the answer inside our own family. My name was tagged. Daniel read the post over my shoulder. "She announced your kidney. I have not even done a blood test. She knows that." I called Mom and told her to remove it. "People want to pray," she said. "They are praying for a surgery I did not agree to. You said you wanted information. Information is not consent. Why are you making every word so technical?" "Because technical words protect people," I thought. I said it out loud. Mom became very quiet, then she said, "Your father saw the post. It gave him hope." There it was again. If I corrected her, I would not simply protect a boundary. I would take hope from a sick man. I asked her to change the post. She changed one sentence, and the new version said I was exploring donation. The comments still called me brave. At work the next day, a phlebotomist named Tasha hugged me near the break room. She had seen the post through a mutual friend. "That is an amazing thing you are doing," she said. I froze before I could answer. Then I heard myself say, "We are still figuring it out." It was not a lie, and it also was not the truth I needed to tell. That afternoon, I called Mara and scheduled the education session. Daniel came with me. We sat in a small room while Mara explained testing, surgery, recovery, and the right to withdraw. She spoke directly to me. "Your father's team is separate from yours," she said. "My responsibility is your safety and your choice." Daniel asked what would happen if I changed my mind after testing. "We stop," Mara said. Kelly does not owe anyone a reason. I looked at the folder on her desk. It was not green. It was plain white and empty. Can the family be told I am medically unsuitable? I asked. If a donor needs privacy, the team can protect that privacy. We do not share personal details. Daniel glanced at me. He knew what I was asking. I wanted a door that looked like a wall. I wanted to leave without anyone blaming me. Mara must have recognized it too. You are also allowed to say no because you do not want surgery, she said. That is a complete reason. I nodded. It did not feel complete inside my family. I agreed to basic blood work. I told myself 1 tube of blood was not a promise. In my job, tests created information, and they did not create obligations. That belief lasted until Mom learned the appointment date. I had not told her. I had put the appointment on the shared calendar we used for Dad's rides, and Mom saw it before I reached the parking lot. I knew you would come through, she said. I agreed to 1 test. That is how every journey starts. Do not tell anyone else. I would never violate your privacy. I almost laughed. Instead, I repeated the boundary and ended the call. The blood draw took less than 5 minutes, and the technician labeled each tube while I watched. I had supervised that motion thousands of times. It looked different when the label carried my name. Mara called several days later, and my blood type was compatible. That did not make me approved. It meant further evaluation was possible. I thanked her and sat alone in my car. Compatible. The word felt like a verdict even though she had explained that it was not. My father needed a kidney. I had 2. The arithmetic was simple. The life around it was not. When I told Daniel, he asked how I felt. Useful, I said. He waited. And trapped. He reached across the console and held my hand. Then do not confuse those feelings. Mom organized dinner that weekend, and she called it a regular family meal. I should have known better. A banner hung across the dining room wall when we arrived. Lucy read it before I could stop her. Thank YOUKELLY. The letters were cut from blue paper. A paper kidney was taped beside my name. Noah thought it was a bean. Dad stood and hugged me, and he whispered, "You are saving my life." My body went cold. "I am only in testing," I said. Mom carried a casserole from the kitchen. "Tonight is about hope. Do not ruin it with disclaimers." Evan lifted his glass. To my big sister. I did not sit down. Daniel stayed beside me. Lucy moved close enough that her shoulder touched my arm. "Take the banner down," I said. Mom stared at me as if I had insulted Dad. "Your children made part of it." They had not. I looked at Lucy. "Grandma asked us to color the letters," she admitted. "She said it was a surprise for you." I pulled the paper kidney from the wall. The tape tore the paint. Dad lowered himself into his chair. "Kelly, please, I have had a terrible week." The room shifted, and my boundary became an attack on a tired patient. Everyone knew the move. I sat through dinner because I was afraid leaving would hurt Dad. That was my mistake. I taught them that enough public pressure could hold me in a chair. Mom discussed recovery as if it were scheduled. She said Daniel could take leave. She said the children could stay with her. She said my job would protect my position, and Evan nodded along. "What happens to your company if you are tested?" I asked him. His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "Mom said I am probably not a candidate." "Based on what?" "I have that back thing. You pulled a muscle 3 years ago. It still acts up. A sore back does not determine kidney donation." Mom set down her glass. "Why are we turning this into a competition?" "Because only one child is being asked to compete." Evan looked at Dad. Dad looked at Mom. Mom said, "Evan has employees and a mortgage tied to the business. Your household has 2 stable incomes." Lucy heard every word. So did Noah. I put my napkin on the table. "My children are not evidence that my body is easier to risk." Dad rubbed his forehead. "Nobody is forcing you." The banner hung behind him with my name in letters my children had colored under false instructions. I looked at him. "Then say that clearly. Tell Mom to stop announcing this." He opened his mouth. Mom answered first. "We are grateful." "That is all," Dad let her answer. "We left before dessert." In the car, Noah asked why Uncle Evan could keep both kidneys. Daniel tightened his hands on the steering wheel. I turned around in my seat. "Nobody has decided what anyone will do," I said. "But Grandma did," Lucy replied. Children notice power faster than adults admit. The next week brought a full donor health questionnaire. I left it unopened for 2 days. Then Dad had a bad dialysis session. His blood pressure dropped, and the clinic sent him to the emergency department. Mom called from the hospital. "He kept asking for you," she said. I drove there after work. Dad looked smaller than he had at dinner. A bruise spread along his arm. He tried to joke about hospital food, but his voice shook. When Mom went for coffee, he took my hand. "I am sorry about the banner," he said. "Are you sorry it happened, or sorry I got upset?" His eyes closed. "I do not know how long I can do this," he whispered. That was not an answer. It was more powerful than one. I stayed until midnight. On the way home, I cried so hard I had to pull into a gas station. I loved my father. I also knew he had allowed Mom to turn that love into leverage. Both things were true, and that made the choice harder, not easier. I completed the questionnaire the next morning. I used my own pen. I corrected every answer Mom had written. I mailed it from the post office near work so she could not touch it. That act felt like reclaiming the process. It was not the same as reclaiming my choice. My physical health was not the only issue. A social worker asked about work, finances, childcare, and support. I described Daniel, my leave, and my parents. "Does anyone expect you to donate?" she asked. I could have told the truth. Instead, I said, "They hope I will." "Do you feel pressured?" I pictured Dad in the emergency room. I pictured the banner, and I pictured Mom telling everyone I was his answer. I said, "Not exactly." That was the moment I failed myself. The social worker did not accuse me. She asked whether I wanted more time. I said I was fine. I had spent my life proving I could carry discomfort without dropping anything. I left the room angry at Mom. By the time I reached the elevator, I was angrier at myself. Daniel noticed. I looked away. I softened it. Because if I say I am pressured, they may stop the process. I wanted to say yes. I wanted a clean answer. Instead, I said, "Dad is sick." Daniel sat beside me on the couch. "Your father being sick does not make your fear dishonest." Mara called after the medical review, and I was a possible candidate. More review remained, but there was no obvious medical barrier. I asked her not to tell Dad's team anything beyond the standard update. "We will protect your privacy," she said. I also need to ask again, "Is this your decision?" I looked through the kitchen window. Lucy was teaching Noah how to throw a softball. Daniel stood near the fence, pretending not to watch. "I am still deciding," I said. "Then there is no surgery decision yet." That sentence steadied me. That Friday, Evan came to our house alone, and he brought pizza for the children and a six-pack for Daniel. After the kids went upstairs, he stood in our kitchen and picked at the label on his bottle. I asked whether he had contacted the donor office. "No, why not? Mom said there is no point if you are compatible. She said that before I was tested." He peeled another strip from the label. "What did she tell you, Evan?" He reached for his phone, then stopped. "It does not matter. It matters to me." He unlocked the screen. "She called after Dad's transplant appointment. She said you had the right blood type and paid leave. She said the center should evaluate the person most likely to finish the process. That is not how it works. I know that now." "Did she tell you not to call?" He was silent. "Evan, she said Dad needed one clear plan. She did not want us confusing things." The room felt very still. "Show me." He scrolled through his messages and found a thread from months earlier. "Mom had written more than once, and do not contact the center yet. Kelly has excellent benefits. If both of you enter, they may start asking questions we do not need. Your family depends on the business. Daniel can cover Kelly's recovery." Let your sister do the medical part. You can help in other ways. I read the messages twice. Mom had not simply assumed I would volunteer, and she had managed the field. She had protected Evan from even being asked while directing the transplant office toward me. "Send those to me," I said, "because I need a record." "She used my body as the family plan. I am allowed to remember how." He sent the screenshots. He was right. Evidence did not create the betrayal, it only made denial harder. I called Mom the next morning and asked her to come over without Dad. She arrived with a grocery bag and acted surprised that Daniel stayed in the room. I put the printed messages on the table. Her eyes moved across the page, and she did not ask where I got them. "You told Evan not to be tested," I said. "I told him not to complicate the process. You decided his business mattered more than my health. I decided we should use our resources wisely. My kidney is not a resource." She flinched at the word, but only for a second. "Do you want your father to die while everyone protects their feelings?" she asked. "That is not the choice. It may become the choice." Daniel leaned forward. "Linda, stop putting Robert's survival inside Kelly's answer." Mom ignored him. "Your brother could lose everything if he has surgery," she told me. "You would have paid leave. You have Daniel, you have me." "You mean the woman who announced my surgery before I agreed to it?" "I announced hope. You assigned risk." Her face hardened. "Someone in this family has to be practical." I pushed the messages toward her. "You were practical with my body and protective with his." Mom gathered the pages into a neat stack, then she slid them back. "Evan was always more fragile than you," she said. It was the first honest sentence she had spoken, not medically fragile. Not financially fragile, protected fragile. I had been strong because strength was cheaper for everyone else. Mom stood. "Your father has dialysis on Monday. I assume you are still taking him." The question carried her whole system, and we could discuss my kidney as if it belonged to the group, then return to my scheduled labor. "No," I said. "Evan can take him." On Monday morning, Evan drove Dad to dialysis. The clinic did not close. His business did not collapse. The world survived one task, moving from the steady daughter to the protected son. That small fact opened a door in me. For the next month, I stopped being the default driver. I took Dad to one dialysis session each week because I chose that day. Evan covered another. Mom handled the third. What did happen was that everyone became less impressed by how much work I had been hiding. Evan learned the nurses' names. Mom learned how early I had been leaving home. Dad learned that a ride from me was time away from my children, not a natural resource that appeared beside his driveway. The donor evaluations still waited in the background. I met with Mara again and told her the truth about the pressure. All of it. The social media post. The banner. The messages protecting Evan and the questionnaire Mom had completed. Mara listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked one question. "If your family had never mentioned donation, would you have contacted us on your own?" I looked at the floor. "I might have. That is not the question." I took a breath. "I do not know," she nodded. Then we slowed down. Relief moved through me so fast that I almost laughed. Shame followed it. I already passed the medical tests. Passing a test is not agreeing to surgery. "I know. Do you?" Her voice was kind. That made the question land harder. Mara offered to close my evaluation and tell Dad's team only that I would not proceed, and she said no reason would be shared. For years, that would have been exactly what I wanted: a private exit. A professional wall. No confrontation. I asked for another week. At home, I placed the green folder beside the clean white packet from the donor office. One contained Mom's answers. The other contained mine. The difference was not the medical information, it was who held the pen. Dad's health worsened before my week ended. His dialysis access became infected, and he developed a fever and spent 4 days in the hospital. The doctors treated the infection, but he looked frightened in a way I had never seen. I visited alone on the second evening. Mom had gone home to shower. Evan was picking up dinner. "Your mother says you paused the donor process," he said. I sat in the chair beside him. "That information was private. Did you know she told Evan not to be tested?" He rubbed his thumb across the hospital blanket. "Dad, she thought his business could not manage it. Did you know? Not at first. Later," he kept looking at the television. "That was yes." I felt something inside me settle. It was not peace. It was the end of uncertainty. "You let her protect him," I said. "I did not tell her to pressure you. You let her call me the plan." His eyes filled. "I am scared, Kelly." "So am I. You are healthy." "That is what I am trying to protect." He turned toward me. "I would do it for you." Maybe he would have. Maybe that was true. It still did not answer the question of whether I wanted surgery. "You are asking me to prove love with an organ," I said. "No. I am saying family should show up. I have been showing up for years." He closed his eyes. When Evan arrived, I left in the elevator. I pressed the button for the lobby and felt guilty before the doors even moved. The infection cleared. Dad went home. I expected the fear to push me toward a decision. Instead, it made the family system clearer, and Dad's illness was real. Mom's coercion was also real. One did not cancel the other. I told Mara I was not ready to proceed. She paused the evaluation. Mom sensed the pause within a day. She called during dinner, and I let it go to voicemail. Her message lasted almost 3 minutes. She said Dad was losing time. She said Evan had already rearranged his company to help with rides, and she said I was allowing one uncomfortable family conversation to outweigh a lifetime of love. Then, she said the sentence that ended my indecision. "Your brother has finally found stability, Kelly. You have always been the one who could take a hit." I played that part twice. Daniel heard it from across the table. Lucy heard it too. "What does she mean by a hit?" Lucy asked. I looked at my daughter. She was 12. She was watching me learn what she would someday believe women were expected to endure. I did not want her lesson to be that capable people lose the right to refuse. I called Mara the next morning. "I want to withdraw," I said. "Are you certain?" "Yes." "Would you like us to protect the reason?" I looked at the green folder on my desk. "No, please keep my health information private, but I will tell my family my decision myself." Mara explained that she would close my donor evaluation. She also offered a meeting with the donor advocate if I wanted support. I asked whether the transplant center ever held family education meetings. "Sometimes," she said. "The patient must agree, and the meeting cannot be used to recruit a donor. I need my parents to hear that from someone they cannot dismiss." Mara said she would speak with Dad's social worker. I did not call Mom that day. I told Dad first. He answered from his recliner, and the television was loud behind him. "I have withdrawn from donor evaluation," I said. The room on his end went quiet. He must have muted the television. "Because of what your mother said." "Because I do not consent to surgery under this pressure. So if she had behaved better, you would do it?" "I do not know. That is part of why the answer has to be no." He breathed into the phone. "I may not get another chance," he said. "I know." "You can live with that?" The question hurt because he intended it to hurt. "I will have to live with my decision," I said. "You have to live with yours." "What decision did I make?" "You allowed Mom to excuse Evan and assign me." He denied the word assign. I reminded him of the banner and the messages, and he said families make plans when they are afraid. "Plans require the agreement of the person inside them," I said. He ended the call. Mom arrived at our house 20 minutes later. Daniel saw her through the window and locked the front door. She rang the bell, then knocked with the side of her fist. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me. "You told him over the phone?" she demanded. I told him clearly. "You have broken him." "He is sick. I did not make him sick. You were his best chance. I was a possible donor. I was never a promise." She held up her phone. "The center will tell him you are unsuitable, and this can be over. Why would you make him know you refused?" Because she still wanted a lie that protected everyone except me. I am not ashamed of my no, I said. You should be. The words came quickly. I do not think she planned them, and that did not make them less honest. I opened the door. Mom reached for my arm. Kelly, wait. I pulled away. You do not touch me while telling me my body belongs to Dad. Her hand dropped. Daniel stood inside the doorway. Lucy and Noah were upstairs. I could hear a video playing through the ceiling. Mom looked past me toward the sound. Your children will understand one day, she said. I hope they understand today. I went inside and locked the door. The family education meeting was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Dad agreed after his social worker said the center would not discuss his donor status with Mom alone. He wanted clarity. Mom wanted another chance to persuade me. Evan agreed because Dad asked. During those 3 weeks, Mom built a campaign. Then she involved my children. Lucy came home from school with a folded note in her backpack. Mom had met her near the pickup line. She had asked Lucy to write down reasons I was brave enough to help Grandpa. The note contained 3 sentences in my daughter's handwriting. Mom helps people. Mom is not scared of hospitals. Mom loves Grandpa. Underneath, in Mom's handwriting, was a 4th line. Love does hard things. I sat on the edge of Lucy's bed and asked exactly what Grandma had said. She said you were confused because Dad was worried, Lucy told me. She said we could remind you who you are. My stomach turned. What did you say? I said you told us nobody gets part of your body unless you choose. I hugged her. Lucy pulled back. Grandma said children do not understand sacrifice. Grandma should never have put you in this conversation. Are you mad at me? No, never at you. I told both children that adults had tried to make a medical decision into a test of love. I told them Grandpa was ill and I loved him, and I also told them I would not donate. I emailed Mom. I told her she was not allowed to contact our children directly until after the meeting. I notified the school that she no longer had pickup permission. She replied with 1 sentence. You are cutting us off when your father needs family most. I did not answer. Evan called that evening. She approached Lucy at school. He exhaled. What do you want from me? That Mom told you not to contact the donor center, that you agreed, that Dad eventually knew. I want you to stop standing behind me while they push. The next morning, he sent me the complete message thread. It went back farther than the screenshots he had first shown me. Mom had contacted him the night after Dad's transplant appointment. We need to keep one clear path. Do not offer before Kelly is screened. Your company is finally stable, and she has leave and good insurance. Dad agrees that you should focus on work. Evan had replied, are you sure she wants to do it? Mom wrote, she will. Kelly always does what needs doing. 2 days later, Dad had sent Evan a separate message. Listen to your mother. We cannot risk both of you turning your lives upside down. Both of you. They had described protecting Evan from a phone call as protecting both children, and they had treated my surgery as the path that prevented disruption. I printed the full thread and placed it in the green folder. That folder had become a map of decisions made around me. Mom's handwriting filled the medical pages, her messages filled the back pocket. Lucy's notes sat in front. I did not need more evidence. A week before the meeting, Dad called me after midnight. I sat up in bed. Daniel woke beside me but stayed quiet. Dad said dialysis had been rough. He said he felt cold all the time. Then he asked whether I had really closed the evaluation. Dad said, your mother was wrong about Evan. I know that. Did you know she told him not to be tested? Yes. The word was barely audible. Why did you let her? I was afraid he would say no. I was afraid you would too. She said if we made one path feel certain, you would keep moving. My chest tightened. You knew I was being managed. I thought once you saw you were healthy enough, you would want to do it. Healthy enough is not willing. I know that now. It was not a full apology, and it was the first time he named his part. He asked whether I hated him. No, I said, but loving you will not erase what you did. He whispered that he understood. I was not sure he did. Before we ended the call, I told him the meeting would not change my decision. "Then why go?" he asked. "Because this family needs to hear the difference between a donor and a daughter." The day before the meeting, Mom sent a photograph of a calendar. She had marked a possible surgery window in red. She had written Daniel beside the children, Mom beside meals, Evan beside Dad's business calls, and Kelly beside donor. She had scheduled the life she wanted. I saved the photograph. Then I turned off my phone. That night, Daniel asked whether I wanted him inside the meeting. "I need to do this," I said. "I can still sit beside you. If you sit beside me, Mom will say you made the decision." He hated that she had that power over the story. I touched his face. "Wait outside. I want to walk out to you after I use my own voice." The next morning, I put the green folder and a blank withdrawal form in my work bag. The transplant center conference room was colder than I remembered. A pitcher of water sat in the middle of the table, and 4 paper cups stood beside it. Dad sat across from me. Mom sat at his right. Evan took the chair near the door. Mara sat at the head of the table with a donor advocate named Claire. Daniel waited in the lobby. Mom placed a dark green folder in front of her. It was not mine. She had bought another one. "We appreciate everyone making time," Mara began. "This meeting is for education and communication. It is not a donor evaluation, and no one will be recruited here." Mom smiled tightly. "Of course, we only need to clear up a misunderstanding." She opened her folder. Inside were copies of my work leave policy, Daniel's school calendar, a map between our house and the hospital, and the red recovery calendar she had photographed. She slid a living donor packet toward me. My name was typed at the top. "Kelly only needs to sign," she said. "We have already handled the rest." The words were almost identical to the ones she had used in my kitchen months earlier, and this time nobody pretended they were helpful. Mara pulled the packet toward herself. "Mrs. Turner, Kelly's donor evaluation is closed." Mom looked at me. "Paused, you mean?" "Closed," Mara said. Dad shifted in his chair. Mom opened another page. "She was compatible. She passed every test she mentioned. There was no medical reason to stop." Claire spoke calmly. "Medical suitability does not create consent." "I understand consent," Mom replied. "I am her mother." The sentence exposed more than she intended. I put my work bag on the table and removed my green folder. The original label still carried my name. "This is the packet you filled out for me," I said. Mom did not look at it. "I completed basic history because you were overwhelmed. You listed my surgeries. You listed my pregnancies. You used an old emergency file to answer questions I had not agreed to receive." Dad looked at the folder for the first time, and Mom turned to Mara. "Nothing I wrote was false." "That is not the issue," Mara said. "It is exactly the issue. I gave accurate information so my husband could live." Claire folded her hands. "A potential donor owns the process. Accuracy does not replace permission." Mom's mouth tightened. I opened the back pocket and took out the message thread. "Evan, please tell them what Mom said after Dad's first transplant appointment." He looked at Dad, then at me. Mom answered for him. "This is not about family gossip. It is about how the donor path was chosen," I said. Evan rubbed both hands over his jeans. "Mom told me not to contact the center." Dad stared at the water pitcher. Myra asked, "Were you told you had a medical reason not to be evaluated?" "No." Mom leaned toward him. "You had your business. We discussed the impact." "You told me Kelly had benefits," Evan said. "You said the center should have one clear candidate. I was trying to keep this family afloat." I placed the printed messages on the table. Mara did not read them. She did not need to. Claire glanced only at the first page. Mom pointed at me. "She has paid leave. Her husband has summers off. Evan has employees who depend on him. Those facts matter." "My children depend on me," I said, "and you would recover." "You cannot promise that. Donors recover every day." "That does not make their risk communal property," Dad finally spoke. "Linda, slow down." She turned on him. You asked me to find a path. I asked you to help. I did help. Her voice rose. She tapped the red calendar. I arranged meals. I arranged childcare. I checked the leave policy. I protected Evan's company so we would still have income in the family. I made this possible. There it was. Her defense was not that she had misunderstood me, and her defense was that she had organized me too well to stop. I looked at the calendar. You wrote my name beside donor, I said, because you were the donor. No, I was the daughter you expected to obey. Dad closed his eyes. Mom pushed the packet closer. What do you want us to do, Kelly? Pretend your father has endless time? Pretend all choices cost the same? No. Then be honest. One surgery would disrupt your life for a while. If Evan steps away, his company could fail. Your family has Daniel's salary, your benefits, and savings. You are the sensible choice. Mara started to speak. I raised my hand, and I wanted Mom's argument to finish in the open. Say the rest, I told her. She looked confused. Say why my fear counts less. I never said that. You said I could take a hit. Her eyes flickered toward Dad. She remembered the voicemail. You have always been stronger, she said. Stronger than Evan, more stable, more useful. That is not fair. Was it fair to tell him not to be tested? He has a different life. So do I, you know what I mean. I did. I opened the folder and removed Lucy's note. I read the 3 lines my daughter had written. Then I read Mom's addition. Love does hard things, I said. Mom's expression softened. She thought the note was helping her. I placed it beside the donor packet. Lucy wrote this after you approached her at school. You asked my child to help pressure me into surgery. I reminded her that you are brave. You made her responsible for Grandpa's survival. I was trying to reach you. You reached a 12-year-old. Dad looked at Mom. You went to Lucy's school? Mom waved the question away. I spoke to my granddaughter for 5 minutes. You lost pickup permission because of those 5 minutes, I said. Her face changed. You did that? Yes. Dad whispered, Linda. She turned toward him. Do not act shocked. You knew Kelly was pulling away. Everyone expected me to stand still while she closed the only open door. Claire spoke then. Mrs. Turner, Kelly was never an open door, and she was a person considering a medical choice. Mom looked at me with tears in her eyes. And what are you now? The old answer rose first. Your daughter, your helper, the person who fixes this. I let it pass. I am a person saying no. She shook her head. No, because you are angry. No, because I do not consent. You consented to testing. I consented to testing. You completed the evaluation. I completed part of it. You were approved. I was medically possible. Mom slapped her palm against the folder. The paper cups jumped. Stop hiding behind words. I had heard that before. She called language technical whenever it limited her access. These words are the difference between care and coercion, I said. Dad leaned forward. His voice was tired. Kelly, I need to ask you myself, without your mother, will you reconsider? The room went still. This was the question beneath every other question. Dad finally asked it in his own voice. I looked at him. No, his face folded. He looked older than he had that morning. I wanted to reach across the table, and I kept my hands on the folder. I love you, I said. I will not donate my kidney. Mom made a broken sound. Dad stared at me. Why? Because the pressure changed the process. Because I cannot separate my choice from months of being managed. Because when I imagined surgery, I felt trapped more than willing. That is enough. He looked at Mara. Can she decide that after all the testing? Yes, Mara said. At any point. Can the center change her mind? No. Mom pushed back her chair. Then why are we here? I answered. Because you kept telling everyone I was confused. I wanted you to hear my answer in a room where nobody would translate it for you. I removed the blank withdrawal form from my bag. Myra said the electronic closure was already complete. I told her I knew. I wrote my name on the line, and I checked the box ending my evaluation. In the space for optional comments, I wrote that I was withdrawing by my own decision and did not authorize family members to seek information about my donor status. The sound of my pen was small. It changed the room. I signed the bottom and dated it in words, then I handed the form to Mara. "Please place this in my donor record." "I will," she said. Mom stared at the paper as if it were a medical emergency. "You would rather sign that than save him." I turned toward her. "You did not ask which child could help Dad. You decided which child was allowed to say no." Nobody moved. Evan looked down at the messages. Dad covered his mouth. Mom whispered, "I was protecting this family." "You protected Evan from a question. You protected Dad from uncertainty. You protected yourself from hearing no. The only person you did not protect was me." Her tears spilled then. I did not feel victorious. I felt clear. She pointed at Evan. "Fine, test him. Is that what you want?" "No," the answer surprised her. I looked at my brother. "I will not volunteer him either." Mara nodded once. "Evan can contact the program if he wants information," I said. "He can decide privately. His body does not become the next family assignment because mine is unavailable." Evan's eyes filled. Mom looked from him to me. "Then who saves your father?" "A willing living donor, a deceased donor, or no donor," I said. "Those are the real possibilities, not a daughter you scheduled like a procedure." Dad flinched. Mom turned to him. "Say something." He lowered his hands. "I knew you told Evan not to call," he said. She stared at him. "I knew Kelly was being pushed," he continued. "I let it happen because I was scared." "Robert, I let you make her the plan." Mom's face went white. Dad looked at me. "That was wrong." The apology was plain. It did not repair everything, and it did not arrive with an excuse. I nodded because I could not speak. Mom closed her folder. "So everyone has decided I am the monster." "No," I said. "You are a frightened wife who crossed a line again and again. Fear explains it. It does not erase it." She looked toward Mara as if hoping someone would defend her. Nobody did. Mara explained the next steps for Dad. His place on the transplant list would continue according to the program's process. The team would discuss other options with him. No family member would receive information about any potential donor. Dad asked whether Evan could call later. "Yes," Mara said, "if he chooses." Evan sat straighter. "I will call for information." Mom reached for his arm. "You do not have to." He pulled his arm away. "I know," he said. "That is the point." For the first time, her protection did not feel like love to him. I could see it happen. The meeting ended without a surgical date. Mara placed my signed form inside a white file, and she closed it in front of us. That was the visible consequence Mom had refused to imagine. My donor case was over. No argument, calendar, prayer request, or family vote could reopen it. I put the green folder back in my bag. Dad remained seated. Mom walked out first. Evan followed slowly. I waited until Mara and Claire left, then stood across from Dad. "Will you still come to dialysis sometimes?" he asked. "Yes, on the days we agree on." He nodded. "Will you let me see the kids?" "When they feel safe, and when Mom is not using them to reach me." His eyes filled again. "I am sorry, Kelly. I believe you are sorry today." It was the most honest thing I could offer. Daniel stood when I entered the lobby. He did not ask how it went. He looked at my face and opened his arms, and I walked into them. For several minutes, I shook. The meeting had not made Dad healthy. It had not made Mom understand, and it had only made my answer real. That was enough for one day. Evan contacted the donor office the following week. He told me afterward, not before. He completed an initial health screening and learned that his blood pressure needed attention. He was not immediately cleared to continue. That frightened him into finding a doctor, and for the first time in years, he treated his own health as more than an obstacle to work. I did not ask for his private medical details. I did not ask whether he would donate if cleared. Mom did. Evan told her to stop. He also started taking Dad to dialysis twice a week. His company adjusted. One employee handled early calls, and another took a larger role in scheduling. The business survived. That fact did not prove Evan should donate. It proved Mom had treated his inconvenience as catastrophe while treating my surgery as manageable. Dad remained on dialysis. Some weeks were hard, some were simply routine. He followed his diet more carefully and stopped joking about missing medication. Illness did not become a moral lesson with a perfect ending. It stayed an illness. My relationship with Dad changed in smaller ways. I stopped managing his entire life, and I attended one medical meeting when he asked. I did not call the pharmacy for him. I did not rearrange appointments he forgot. Evan and Mom handled more because they had to. Dad began thanking me for specific things. Thank you for the ride. Thank you for sitting with me, and thank you for coming because you wanted to. Those words sounded different from steady girl. Mom did not apologize for months. She sent articles at first, then she sent long messages about forgiveness, and she said stress had made her behave unlike herself. I replied once. Pressure did not create a new person, it showed the method you trust when other people resist you. She called that cruel. I blocked her number for 6 weeks. During that time, our house became quieter. Lucy stopped asking whether I might change my mind, and Noah stopped checking my stomach when he hugged me. Daniel stopped keeping his phone face up at dinner in case Mom arrived. Safety often looks ordinary after it returns. Dad visited us alone near the end of summer. Evan drove him. He sat on our back porch while the children chased fireflies. He brought no forms. I should have protected your choice, he said. Yes. I thought being sick gave me permission to be selfish. It gave you reasons to be afraid. That is not the same thing. No, he looked toward Lucy and Noah. I told myself you had more support, so asking more from you was fair. I did not think about what the children heard. They heard that Mom was replaceable because Dad was sick. He wiped his eyes. I am sorry. This time, the apology included the harm. I did not promise everything would return to normal. Normal had created the problem. I told him we could build something more honest. Almost a year after the first transplant appointment, Dad received a call about a deceased donor kidney, and the surgery went forward that night. I sat with Mom, Evan, and Daniel in the waiting room. Mom did not call it fate. She did not say my refusal had led to a better plan. She sat with both hands around a paper cup and waited like the rest of us. Dad's recovery was not easy, but the kidney began working. When I first saw him after surgery, he squeezed my hand. This did not happen because you said no, he whispered, and it would not have been your fault if it never happened. I had not known how much I needed him to say that. Mom heard him. She looked down. Weeks later, she asked to meet me at a coffee shop. She brought an envelope, not a folder. Her apology was imperfect. She said she had confused planning with control. She admitted she protected Evan because she believed he would refuse, while she believed I could be pushed until I agreed. I used your reliability against you, she said. Yes. She asked whether I forgave her. I am not ready to give you a word that lets you stop changing. She nodded. For once, she did not negotiate. We began with limited visits and no private contact with the children, no medical questions about my body, no family announcements using my name without permission. When she crossed a smaller boundary, the visit ended, and she learned that consequences were not speeches. They were doors closing at the exact line. Evan apologized too. He said he had accepted protection because it was comfortable. He had watched me carry the moral weight while he called himself uninvolved. He now covers most of Dad's follow-up rides, not as punishment, as participation. The green folder stayed in my desk for a long time. One evening, Lucy asked whether I still needed it. I opened it with her beside me. We removed Mom's questionnaire, the recovery calendar, the messages, and the note from school. I scanned what I needed for my records, then we fed the paper into our small shredder. The folder was empty when we finished. Lucy ran her hand over the white label with my name. "What will you use it for now?" she asked. I thought about throwing it away. Instead, I placed her summer art program forms inside. They required her signature as well as mine. "Things people choose for themselves," I said. She smiled and signed her page. My father got another chance at health. My brother learned that protection can become avoidance, and my mother lost the right to manage my answer. I kept my kidney, but that was not the only thing I kept. I kept my voice. Being dependable does not make your body a family resource. Love can ask. Fear can explain. Neither one can consent for you. If this story reminded you of a time your reliability was treated like permission, share your thoughts in the comments. And subscribe for more stories about boundaries, family, and the moment a quiet no finally becomes real.